She's standing at the mirror, and the reflection is the one in control. Her hands close around something sharp without her permission. She raises it slowly, mechanically, and draws it across her skin with every drop of blood. The face in the mirror smiles not at her, at what it's taking from her. Across town, a man stands at a window and threads a needle through his own eyelid, stitching it shut with calm, deliberate strokes. Then something inside his head switches off. He grabs his skull with both hands and slams it into the wall once, twice, until he drops. None of this makes sense yet. It will. Because all of it, every bit of this horror began with a small statue that should have stayed buried. Our story starts with Sue, an engineer at a video game company. Arriving at an abandoned house with one of his workers, the house has a history. A family lived here once, happy, ordinary, unremarkable. Then one day the neighbors noticed a smell coming from the apartment, called the police, and what they found inside ended all conversations about the family's happiness. Everyone was dead, killed in the worst way imaginable. The wife's body was never found. This is exactly the kind of place a horror game company wants to replicate in detail. Sue is uneasy. He tells the worker they should burn incense before entering the studio space. The room is full of statues, and nobody knows what lives inside things like that. The worker laughs it off. He has bigger problems. Today is his 10th wedding anniversary, and his wife will ruin the evening if he comes home late. He heads straight into the kiln room. The door locks behind him by itself. Sue calls out silence, then the worker appears behind him. Not inside the room, he's holding a small statue he found in the kiln. It's carved into the shape of a child's body on its back, symbols in a language neither of them can read. The worker moves to hand it over and drops it. A piece of the head breaks off. That fracture is the beginning of everything. Sue tries to move for the exit. A table flips across the room without anyone touching it. It pins him down. He bleeds, and the moment his blood touches the statue disappears. The worker spins around looking for it. It was right there on the floor. He turns back and finds it standing upright in front of him again. The bleeding somehow worse than before, moving in a way that makes no sense for something made of clay. Before the worker can reach the door, something pulls him back. A force with no shape drags him into the kiln. He fights it. He loses. The door seals. Morning. Sue wakes up to a baby doll crying beside him in bed. His wife Moo is pregnant, and he'd been practicing setting the doll next to him at night, so the crying wouldn't startle him. When their daughter finally arrives, he silences it, tosses it on the mattress, and heads to the studio where Moo is already working. She's a conservator. She restores ancient artifacts. This morning she's cleaning a historical sculpture. He walks in and announces he put the doll to sleep in her spot so she'd know he's father material. She pulls the rocks from his pocket. She knows every trick he runs and raises an eyebrow. He asks why she's working. She should be on leave until the birth. She tells him she wants to ease into the shift. They need the money. She'd rather be busy. He promises if the director approves his new project, she'll never have to work a day she doesn't want to. He reminds her he remembers the doctor's appointment. He'll come pick her up. He arrives at the office and gets a rejection email in the face. Project data insufficient. The director is spinning in circles because the apartment survey has no usable data. He turns to Sue, as he always does when something needs saving. Sue walks in wearing a hat pulled down over half his face, carrying a box with the broken statue inside. The director doesn't notice the state of him. He takes the box, hands Sue the presentation, and says, "Handle it." Sue presents to the investor in his colleague's place. He walks through the story. A man who murdered his entire family with a bladed weapon, then cut his own throat. The wife's body was never found. The investor cuts him off. Just show us the game demo. That's when a man appears at the glass wall, banging on it. He screams, "You have to leave, she's coming." He looks at the image of Leo, the artist who owned the house, on the presentation screen. Her eyes are bleeding in the photograph. He collapses before anyone can reach him. The director decides Sue is the only one who can carry this project. He promises a bonus. Sue negotiates. "I'll finish the game, but you approve my concept in return." He goes home that evening with the box. The moment he sees Moo, he remembers he missed her doctor's appointment. He spends the next half hour apologizing. He brings out the sushi she loves. She reminds him, with the patience of a woman 8 months pregnant, that she cannot eat raw fish. He sits down and cooks the fish himself. That's the apology. Over dinner, she tells him she withdrew from the Rome restoration project. She wants to be home for every stage of their daughter's life from the beginning. He's upset. That project would have been the biggest thing she'd ever done professionally, but she's already decided. He lets it go. He promises paternity leave the moment the baby arrives. After she falls asleep, Sue sits at his workbench crafting a small medallion for the daughter they haven't met yet. Somewhere in the apartment, the baby doll starts crying. He moves fast to switch it off before Moo wakes. Next morning at the office, he checks the camera he set up in the living room to make sure she's comfortable while he's out. Then, he watches an old interview with Leo, the artist whose house he's been documenting. The interviewer asked why she always used materials from cemeteries in her sculptures. She'd bristled at the framing. These are traditions. She said everyone has their beliefs. In the end, it's the art that remains. Sue watches her face carefully. That evening at home, he glances at the studio. The camera shows Moo still at her desk. He calls out. She comes from the kitchen. Instead, he looks back at the studio. She's gone from there. He turns. Her face is covered in blood. He wakes up from the nightmare, gasping. In the morning, Moo reads about Leo's case in the newspaper and gets emotional. She says she can't imagine what brought that family to such an end. Sue gently takes the paper from her. She then asks him to make one promise. If anything happens to me, save our daughter first, not me, our daughter. He refuses. The premise, I've promised 1,000 times, I'll save you both. I can't survive losing either one. That night, the air conditioning climbs on its own. The front door opens by itself. Moo wakes up, gets water, and stops near the crate holding the statue. She almost touches it, feels movement in her belly. Lets herself be led away, but her feet bring her back. Same crate, same statue. This time she opens it. She runs her fingers along the broken section of the head. A voice calls her name from the security camera. She looks around, notices her finger is bleeding. She cut it on the statue's edge. She assumes it's nothing. She goes back to bed. The blood soaks into the clay. Something wakes up inside the statue. Dawn. Sue finds the thermostat maxed out and looks for Moo. She's sitting in the kitchen, eyes red and inflamed, staring at nothing. He asks if she touched the thermostat. She says she's just under the weather. Then her voice rises without warning. She accuses him of sleeping through the night while she was suffering. He points out she could have woken him. She comes back to herself, apologizes, picks up a spoon of soup, and the entire tone of the room shifts. She eats frantically, like something is chasing her. Then she stops and brings up everything she just swallowed. Sue goes to the office and searches online for the effects of pregnancy hormones on behavior. His director notices and delivers unsolicited advice. Just look the other way for a while. What she's going through isn't easy. He hands him a protection charm his wife brought from the temple. Reviewing the survey footage that afternoon, Sue notices the symbols on the back of the statue were completely intact at the time of filming. They're partially erased now. His phone rings. The man from the conference room glass. His voice is barely recognizable. The statue is going to kill me. Get a shaman and come now. Sue runs. He gets there to find the man at the window, sewing his eyelids shut with a needle. He grabs him, but the spirit controlling him has already reached home. The baby doll moves. Its arm snaps sideways, and the man's arm breaks at the same joint. In the same motion, his other hand finds his own skull and begins slamming it into the wall until he loses consciousness. Sue calls the ambulance. Then he goes back to the office, pulls up the footage, and finds what he missed. Moo touched the statue. She is already infected. He goes home, enters the studio, closes the door. The statue's head is completely red, saturated from all the blood it absorbed. Moo begins pounding on the door from the other side, frantic, rhythmic, unrecognizable. He sees the baby doll on the floor, soaked in blood. She had been using it to control the man at the window. Whatever position the doll takes, the person's body follows. The spirit inside Moo senses the threat. It tries to leave her body and enter Sue. It whispers, "Let me in, let me take you instead." Sue feels his whole body go cold. He sees flashes of Leo weeping, alone in a dark room. The charm from his director holds the spirit back. He grabs the statue and runs for the temple. Moo intercepts him at the front door. He has to leave her behind. At the temple, the shaman explains what they're dealing with. The symbols on the statue's back are an ancient seal containment markings used to trap a malevolent spirit inside a human-shaped vessel. Because human form is the most effective container, if the spirit escapes, it can inhabit any living person with a single drop of blood. Part of the seal is now gone. That's the crisis. He prepares multiple charms. He tells Sue they have until sunrise. If they can't complete the seal, the spirit achieves full possession. Moo has been carrying this for 6 days already. 1 day remains. Sue can barely speak, he says. She only restored the head, she didn't know what she was touching. The shaman stares at him, he says, that is exactly why the spirit chose her. It needed someone with the precise skill to repair its container. It waited for her. They need Leo's body. A human vessel, specifically the one the spirit originally destroyed, is powerful enough to contain it permanently, otherwise it will keep feeding on Mu until nothing remains. Sue asks, and if that doesn't work? The shaman keeps the answer to himself because the backup plan is something Sue cannot be allowed to consider yet. They arrive at the abandoned house separately. The shaman goes in alone. Sue stays outside with Mu, trying to keep her present. But he puts on the VR headset and enters the game, the digital recreation of the house, to find the missing piece of the statue's head. If they can complete the seal markings, they might not need the body at all. Inside the simulation, a figure with a bleeding face appears. He fails, resets. The shaman, moving through the real house, reaches a room full of statues with detached heads. He understands the spirit separated them to harvest their energy, to multiply itself. Outside, Mu comes back to herself and runs. Sue chases her into the house. He finds the kiln room locked, smoke curling under the door, fire building on the other side, and Mu behind him, driving something sharp into his ribs. The shaman shouts, "Use the charm now." Sue pulls the chain from his neck and throws it in her face. She staggers back. The kiln door opens. Mu collapses, crying herself again. Sue holds her and tells her, "I know you're exhausted, but fight it. Our daughter is almost here." The shaman completes the seal on Leo's skull, the last physical trace of her, and begins the ceremony to force the spirit back into containment. The spirit fights the shaman, bleeds from his nose. With the effort, he drives it out of Mu. It immediately tries to enter him. The charm holds. Forced back, it retreats into Mu, into the child growing inside her. The shaman's face goes still. He tells Sue, the only way to seal it now is to use the baby. If we don't act before dawn, we lose them both. Sue says no. The shaman says there is no other option. Sue looks at his wife, he looks at the statue, and he makes the decision that has no good version. He cuts his own palm. He lets the blood fall onto the clay. He lets it in. The spirit floods into him immediately, furious and hungry, and the first thing it tells him to do is walk to Mu and finish her. He walks toward her. He looks at her face. He looks at her stomach. He stops. The spirit pushes, he pushes back. He has never fought anything like this, and he has nothing left. No charm, no defense, no plan, just the image of her face. He finds the blade on the table. He drives it into his own arm to pull himself partially free. He turns to the shaman. Seal it now inside me before the sun rises. The shaman seals the spirit inside Sue. Sue looks at Mu for the last time. He is smiling because he kept his promise. He said he would save them both. He does. 6 months later. She is sitting in the apartment she shared with him, teaching their daughter to say a word. The baby is trying, repeating sounds, getting closer. A delivery arrives from the game company, a copy of the finished game. He's in it, rendered in detail. Standing in the digital recreation of the house they built together out of a tragedy neither of them fully understood. She puts on the headset. He's there. She says, "I missed you so much. I wanted you here for all of it." He tells her, "I'll be here for every moment. I'm tied to your phone, your laptop. Whenever you need me, I'm there." She doesn't take the headset off for a long time. Let's stay with the opening image for a moment because it deserves more than a quick mention. The reflection that controls the woman, the stitched eyelid, the skull against the wall. Horror as a genre has spent decades building a vocabulary of external fear, the monster outside the door at the end of the hallway, the thing in the dark. But what this story does from its very first frame is invert that the terror isn't outside, it's the self. Turned against itself, the body doing what the mind refuses to authorize, and the specific choice of a mirror is not accidental. The mirror is where we go to confirm we are still ourselves, when the reflection stops confirming that, when it smiles, and you didn't, the most fundamental certainty a person has collapses. Everything that follows is built on that same foundation. Let's go back to Sue and the abandoned house and talk about what it represents. He's a game developer. His entire professional life is dedicated to the simulation of fear, the controlled, safe version of dread that people pay to experience. He walks into a house where something genuinely terrible happened, and his job is to digitize it to strip it of its weight and turn it into a product. There's something cosmically appropriate about what happens next. The house pushes back. The worker who dismisses the warning isn't careless, he's just a man who believes the world operates on rational terms. You do your job, you go home, you have anniversary dinner with your wife, the statues are clay, the room is a room, these things don't move. Except they do. The detail of the anniversary is worth holding. It's his 10th. He mentions his wife will ruin the evening if he's late, the kind of complaint that is really affection. The mock frustration of someone who loves with great specificity. He disappears before he can get home to her. The story moves on without looking back, because that's how this kind of loss works. It happens without ceremony. And then it's done. Now the possession begins so quietly. Mu doesn't even know she touched the statue. She's half asleep, drawn by something she can't name, and her finger meets the broken clay in the dark. She assumes the blood is nothing. The spirit enters through a wound no larger than a paper cut. This is the detail that makes the whole thing genuinely unsettling, not the scale of the violation, but the smallness of it. You don't need a grand ritual or a deliberate choice. You need one unguarded moment, one drop of blood, 1 second where there was no reason to be careful. That's how it gets in. Now let's talk about Leo. When the shaman's ritual pulls Leo's sister back through time, what we see is a woman already broken. Before the spirit arrived, she'd been pregnant, she lost the child, she sat in her studio alone, holding the impossible weight of that loss, and in a moment of grief-induced dissociation, she made the worst creative decision in the history of art. She mixed the remains of her lost child with cemetery soil. For someone who believed that materials carry memory, that earth near the dead holds something of the dead, this wasn't irrational. This was an attempt to keep her baby close, to make something lasting from something she couldn't hold. But the combination of a lost infant and cemetery soil created a vessel, saturated with the kind of energy that malevolent spirits find irresistible. The spirit moved in, it used her hands to destroy her family. When she came back to herself and understood what she had done, she wrote the sealing symbols on the statue's back with whatever remained of her. While she walked into the kiln, she locked the door from inside. She was trying to fix what she had accidentally started. She gave her own life to contain it. And that's exactly why the spirit needed Mu, not just because she was present, not just because of the blood, but because Mu is a conservator. Her profession is the precise repair of damaged objects. The spirit, after years in a broken vessel, needed someone with exactly that skill set. It found her almost as if it had been waiting. There's also the question of what the statue looks like. A child's body, small and human in shape. The choice to give a malevolent spirit the form of a child is one of horror's oldest moves. It weaponizes the protective instinct. You see something shaped like innocence and your guard drops. And then the symbols on its back begin to erase. And then there's the ending. When the shaman explains what has to happen, seal the spirit inside the child. Before it achieves full possession, Su doesn't argue with the logic. He understands the logic perfectly, he just refuses it. He looks at his wife, he makes the calculation that most people only rehearse in theory. The one where "I would do anything" finally meets a specific and terrible meaning. He cuts his hand, he bleeds onto the clay, he invites the spirit in. The first thing it tells him, walk to her, finish this. He walks toward Mu. He looks at her face. He stops. He fights the possession with the only weapon that remains, the fact that he knows exactly who she is, and the thing inside him does not recognition as resistance, love, in the most stripped down and literal sense, as refusal. He drives a blade into his own arm to buy the shaman 5 seconds. 5 seconds is enough. 6 months later, she teaches her daughter to speak the word. The baby is learning. The film doesn't subtitle it, just lets it play. It's his name. She is teaching their daughter to say her father's name before she teaches her anything else. The game arrives inside it. He exists, his face, rendered, his voice, preserved, a version of him tied to her phone, her laptop, wherever she needs him to be. It's not enough. Nothing is enough when someone is gone, but there is something, a trace, a remnant, and she holds onto it the same way Leo once held onto the idea of her child when she mixed the clay. The difference is what you make from the holding. Leo made something that destroyed everything around it. Mu raises her daughter and teaches her to say his name. If this one stayed with you, you already know what to do.